Yehoah sefosai tiftach ufi yagid dehilosecha. Harei ani makabel al atzmi mitzvahs hasei shel v'yahavta l'reacha kamoicha. This video, I think, is primarily addressed to Jews. However, it needs to be addressed to the world because it is public. What I said just now was, God, open my lips, and my mouth will speak your praise. Then I said, I accept upon myself the commandment. There are 613 commandments in the Jewish Bible. I accept upon myself the commandment to love every fellow Jew as I love myself. First, let me speak, therefore, to non-Jews. First of all, non-Jews who are partners with me, non-Jews who are with me on the barricades. There are only right now about a dozen people, less than a dozen people, who are with me on the barricades, who are contributing their own money to our success, who are partners with me in this endeavor. You, in the most obvious, clear way, I love. We are on the same team. Nothing that has to do with the distinction between Jews and non-Jews applies to you. The second thing I have to say is that on a religious level, there is a mistaken notion that Jews do not accept converts, that Jews are a genetic, familial, racial group, a tribe, and that they don't accept anyone else into their tribe. Everyone else is on the outside. This is false. This is clearly false. This is definitively false. Jews have always accepted outsiders into the people of Israel. Always. These days it's done very, very badly. I've lived in many places in this world. And let me tell you, I've lived in Colombia. The same thing applies in America, but it's more colorful to tell it to you from the Colombian perspective. In Colombia, I went to I explore deeply wherever I go. I went to a chess club, and the owner of the chess club was a Jewish guy who hated Jews. Why did he hate Jews? Because he wasn't wealthy. And the Jews of Colombia were only interested in those who were wealthy. Jews go through these ups and downs, ups and downs. There are pogroms or holocausts or destructions where every Jew is in the worst state possible. And then, because Jews descend from the earliest people who created civilization, they end up gaining economic dominance. Not as a group, God knows. There is a mistaken notion that Jews all work together as a group. I made a video here, just a few videos down. I think it's called, I don't remember what it's called, but a few videos down. It has over 100 views, which is good considering that YouTube's algorithm is very against me, and individual people who have influence have made sure that YouTube's algorithm is against me. But nonetheless, that video has over 100 views, and over there I explained that Jews do not, in fact, love each other like they love themselves and care for each other and work together on behalf of each other, regardless of how it might exploit or hurt other people. It's untrue, both for good and for bad. For good, just so you know, it's untrue. They just happen to be more evolutionarily developed towards certain forms of success. As bad, the Jews should be, at the very least, caring for each other, trying to make an ideal society for all Jews, and then, after they've succeeded, branching out and creating an ideal society for all people. That video is here. It has over 100 views. You can find it without much difficulty. Furthermore, what's more important is the conversion into Judaism. Judaism is not a racial religion. There are Jews who are Chinese. There are Jews who are black. And I'm not even talking about people who descend in part from Jews, but people who themselves have no genetic connection to Jews for thousands of years. Of course, all humans are related way, 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 way back when in evolutionary history, but who have no connection to Jews in recorded history, who convert. And those Jews, we are required, those human beings who originated as non-Jews, we are required to love even more than we love Jews. One of God's names is Ohev Ger, the lover of the stranger, which in today's way of speaking of the world means conversion. Back in ancient days, it meant that the Jews controlled the land of Israel, and other people who came to live among them and within their rules and within their ethics were considered gerim. They were considered converts. They were considered strangers, but yet one of us. One of God's names is Ohev Ger, the one who loves the stranger, the sojourner, the person who is new. We Jews have always accepted conversions. I need to be clear that in this day, things have gone very badly. Colombia. In Colombia, the owner of the chess club was a Jewish guy, born Jewish to Jewish parents who left the Holocaust, who fled the Holocaust. And he's not wealthy because he's interested in chess. That's his capability. He's not good at the whole, I scratch you back, you scratch my back kind of thing. He hates the Jews. I went on the high holy days to try to enter the synagogue of the Jews, and I was not allowed in. I am a rabbi. I speak Hebrew, Yiddish, Aramaic. I know more about Judaism than most certainly even the rabbi of that synagogue. And yet I was not allowed in. Who was allowed in? Numerous people with 100% Indian features. In other words, they do not have any relationship with the Jews whatsoever, but who have converted. Conversion today is done very, very, very wrong. Very, very, very wrong. Let me say that I myself, when I lived in Israel, I grew up wearing a black hat. I grew up as an ultra-Orthodox Jew. But I believed also in being involved in the world. I descend from 4 Holocaust survivors. So I believe in being active in the world. And I found that the black hat community was allowing rampant riots against their... Shabbos is the most important thing. The Saturday, freedom, no concerns, that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. But the Asafsuf, the, less holy people among them, among the Jews, would make it into a tribal war. Anybody who drives through their neighborhood gets stoned, literally stoned. They would throw rocks at them. I got involved over there and I was threatened with death. What I mean is that they would light large fires in these huge traffic bins. This kid, a specific example, this kid, he was older than me at the time, but this kid, nonetheless, was smashing the traffic lights at Kikar Shabbos, a dangerous intersection because of the inclines and upclines that are going on over there. And I shouted at him, Reitzeach, Reitzeach, Reitzeach! Murderer, 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 because undoubtedly getting rid of those traffic lights would cause deaths. Well, he jumped down from his traffic lights, he had all his people surrounding me, and he said, "Now I am a nigger. I will throw you into the fire." And all of his people tried to move me, while spitting at me, into the flaming, huge garbage bins that they had erected there to express their, well, in theory, as far as they're concerned, as far as they would like it to be considered, to express their appreciation of the Sabbath. But in fact, just to express their very lowliest of desires. Of course, I apologized. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. So I ended up with just getting spat at and I didn't get tossed into the actual fire. But at the end of the day, there is a commandment to love all Jews like you love yourself. I'll tell you my own personal story, first of all. Well, no, I'll tell you Judaism, first of all. Judaism, first of all, is that we are trying to create a perfect society. Obviously, we're just human. Perfect is a strong word. We're trying to create as close to a perfect society as we can. That perfect society is where we all care about each other just as much as we care about ourselves. It's that simple. And the goal is to start with Jews. Again, what I saw in Colombia when I was not allowed into that synagogue was that the people who emerged from that synagogue were largely Indians. They were Colombian Indians who had made well. It's no different in America today. In America today, Donald Trump's daughter is married to a Jew. Hillary Clinton's daughter is married to a Jew. Kamala Harris herself is married to a Jew. Jews today, because of their having begun this civilizational process, genetically, having begun this civilizational process earlier than all other people, having left the Paleolithic earlier than other people, they are more adept, on average, in certain ways, at doing well in accordance with the values of our world, which essentially are money, success, influence, shit like that. It's a horrible thing. Now, I myself, back then in Israel, stopped wearing a hat because a hat was what these people wear. These people who throw people into fires if they don't accept the Sabbath commandment, if they don't understand the Sabbath commandment. You think these people appreciate the Sabbath? Not at all. Nonetheless, their leaders weren't speaking up against them. Their leaders were speaking up against those who don't keep the Sabbath. So I wouldn't wear a hat. Today I've gone farther. I don't keep the ritualistic, it's between me and God, let's say, the degree to which I keep the ritualistic aspects of Judaism. But I am not committed to keeping the ritual aspects of Judaism until they are worthy of it, in my estimation. Until they are a group that I am willing to join. So, non-Jews, just so you know, Yisrael, Israel, not the country, the people, are supposed to have the greatest society in existence. We were supposed to do it thousands of years ago already. We've had thousands of years of trying. And I don't know if we've been moving forward the whole time either. And you are more than welcome. There are some of you who we need among us, who are our brothers more than anyone else. Brotherhood here isn't genetic. It's mimetic. It's a connection with understanding what it is who we are, what it is that our lives are, what it is who our God is. And there are many of you, especially those of you who are with me on the barricades, who I believe the time will come when you will join us in Israel, in the peoplehood of Israel. This isn't a racial thing. Nonetheless, here's the thing. We Jews are required to love each and every other Jew, regardless of how bad he or she may be. There may be 1,000, 1,000,000, there certainly are millions, billions perhaps, of non-Jews who are more worthy of being one of our own, whom we ought to include as one of our own, more than we include those that are our distant cousins. There's no question about it. But God chose the Jews and forced it upon us. He gave one last chance. See, first he came to Abraham, and he said, your children will be the Jews. Then he said, well, not entirely, only from Isaac. Then he said, not entirely, only from Jacob. And then, when Jacob's children were so problematic that out of jealousy they sold their brother into slavery, on a good day, their intention was to kill him. On a good day, they sold him into slavery. That's when God said, all right, we've got to cut it here. All the children of Jacob are Israel. I'm sorry if they don't add up. Nonetheless, this is your challenge. You have to love them like you love yourself. I'm going to read now what I have read before in a video called, I don't know what it's called, something like Maimonides or Jewish Rabbi Moses Morals. I think the word morals is in there. It's not hard to find. There's a pyramid in the background. I'm speaking right in front of the pyramids, and I'm speaking from Moses Maimonides. I'll read to you now from Moses Maimonides. Now, I accept upon myself, first of all, I started earlier, that you should know about me personally. Knowing about me personally. Well, first of all, the non-Jew who has in theory done me the most wrong is a girl named Alexis. This girl engaged in what many, many, many millions of girls are engaged in today, so if you're a guy, beware, which is sexual blackmail. I have been told, though I would rather not believe, so I'm not wanting to believe this because I prefer not to think about such things, but I have been told that she was set up to entrap me in a honey trap because during COVID, I put out a video saying, let us arrange in 2 days from now a mask burning. I don't mean to get into the whole COVID thing, but I think we all know by now that it wasn't that there were good parts to it, but that there were also forced upon us parts to it that were very false. And I believed that this whole masking thing was not helpful and was harmful, both in terms of spreading disease and in terms of social happiness. And therefore, I put forth a video saying in 2 days we will all gather in Union Square and we will burn our masks. Well, 2 days later, a girl starts talking to me on the subway, which isn't that surprising. I talk to everybody on the subway. I love the subway in America. It's beautiful. So while I prefer to not think about whether or not she was sent there for any purpose or not, I have been informed by those who understand the world and are less biased than myself in favor of humanity, and they say that it was most likely that she was sent there to catch you. It was a honey trap. Anyway, this particular girl stabbed me. The point was sexual blackmail. She stabbed me, and I called the police, and she begged me, please, please, please don't tell on me because she has a lot of history. She had been diagnosed by the FBI as a sociopath, as someone beyond hope. And so I surrendered. Forget surrender. It was my choice. It was my decision. I made the decision to tell the police that, I'm sorry, everything's okay, don't worry about it. Whereupon, she went ahead and called, complicated thing, she called her father to call the police that she was being held kidnapped and that I had stabbed her and that I had raped her and that she got it in the newspaper, in the New York Post. You can look it up if you care. It's not my point here. My point is that even her, someone who was diagnosed as a sociopath, and who I indeed interacted with, and who stabbed me, and who, because of my kindness of hanging up on the police when I had called, when they had stabbed me, she utilized it for the negative in order to try to get me in trouble, I am still not convinced that she is beyond saving. It probably doesn't matter with regards to her personally, because I've had no involvement with her since then in the last 5 years, and I assume that someone has killed her by now, because there's only that many people you can do that with before somebody kills you. And I would absolutely stand as a witness in defense of the person who killed her. But if she's still alive, I am not yet convinced that she is beyond being incorporated into the humanity where we are all required to love and care for each other. Absolutely. That's as far as I go. So, I hope you will understand if I similarly go so far with Yechia Sinwar, who has not stabbed me, who has not begged for mercy, and I've given it only to be returned, only to receive, for my goodness, that I be accused of stabbing and raping him. In the newspaper! Yichya Sinwar, as far as I can tell, seems to be a murderer. I've never met him, though. And worse than a murderer, much worse, if in fact he were actually caring about the people of Gaza, the people called Palestinians, if he were in fact caring about the individuals, the human beings, the Palestinian human beings, and therefore he was willing to engage in every evil against the Jews, well, I would have what to respect about that. I would hear his point of view easily. However, he knew when he engaged in October, when he planned and acted out October 7th, the mass murder, brutal, ugly, disgusting murder of Jews. He knew that it would cost many more, a multiple of Palestinian lives. And he didn't care. This was his goal. This was his plan. His plan was to turn the Israelis into monsters. That was his plan. To make the Israelis kill a lot of Arabs. My fellow Jews, I hope you can understand that if I am not certain about Alexis, who stabbed me, and who did the worst thing that a person could do to another person. If I'm not convinced that she's beyond reckoning, forgive me if for this moment anyway, until I meet him, I'm not convinced that he himself is beyond salvation either. Let's not forget, my fellow Jews, we have a lengthy history. Nevuzradon Rav Tabochim. I know that neither Orthodox Jews nor non-Orthodox Jews care much about Tanakh, the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the Old Testament. I know that it's far from your minds. It oughtn't to be. It's still extremely relevant. Nevuzradon Rav Tabochim. His name was Nevuzradon. Rav Tabochim means the butcher master. He killed an enormous number of Jews. And yet, he eventually joined the Jews as a ger tzedek, as a righteous convert. I don't expect that of Yichya Sinwar, but I can't rule it out either. I feel like I'd like to rule it out. Obviously, I was literally 30 seconds away from being killed on Kav Shmona Esrei, on the 18 bus, back in 1996, 1997. I was almost killed by him, by his plans, by his people. I would like to rule him out as much as you would like to rule him out. But for now, I can't yet do so. So, my fellow Jews, as I've discussed in my Substack article about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, if you want to read it, you'll have to mention it in the comments. Ask for it, and I will give you the link. I'm not supplying anything unless there are asked for. I discussed over there how Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, and let me see that I have completed everything with regards to non-Jews. Yes, first of all, my friends who are on the barricades with me, who are supporting me, especially those of you who are using your names, whether you are Jewish or non-Jewish, you are my brothers in arms. I love you. As for the rest of the world, my life has shown, you might not know it, but my life has shown that I have not found a way to love my fellow Jews at the expense of other people. To this day, I'm 48 years old, it haunts me that when I was 19 years old, living in Jerusalem in Neve Yaakov, I saw an Arab man who was carrying a refrigerator on his back, and it was crushing him. It was a heavy refrigerator. I had no way to help him. Maybe I did. it seemed to me at the time I had no way to help him. But it gets worse than that. I decided, look, these are the people who are stoning us, who are kidnapping our people, who are trying to kill us and take away the land that our Bible says we should live in. And I didn't have pity on him. I sat down and watched. I tried to enjoy his suffering. I wasn't successful, as you can tell by the fact that it haunts me to this day. Non-Jews who know me are very aware of the fact that v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, as far as I can tell, as far as I can do, applies to everyone. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor, your fellow Jew as yourself, is why I went to the French hospice, a place where people go to die when they have no family who loves them, when there's nothing medically that can be done for them. They're kept in storage. It's not like there are even Patch Adams out there out to cheer them up. I went there daily for years, and I got other people to go there daily to cheer them up against their will. They wanted to just die. They were totally all about death. Their lives were shit. And I did not ignore the non-Jews there. Suhail, an Arab man, in his 30s, with a mustache. He used to ask me to hold his hand. Now, I'm as homophobic as anybody else, and at the time I was a virgin, so certainly to hold a 30-year-old man's hand and sing with him seemed a little bit gay and therefore uncomfortable. But I did it, and eventually it became not uncomfortable. He wanted me to sing with him Shabachi Yerushalayim, a Jewish song expressing love for Jerusalem. And he would go into ecstasy. And it was my pleasure to do it for him. I didn't find a distinction between making him happy and making Jews happy, even though he was theoretically a member of the enemy. So, non-Jews, I hope that I've explained myself as best I can to you, and you're invited, of course, because I believe in complete transparency as the necessity of this day. I'm doing the opposite of what everyone else does. I'm doxing myself instead of hiding behind anonymi, where I can be cruel to people on the internet for the pleasure of releasing some of the angst that we all have. Releasing some of the angst onto someone else, make them suffer. I'm not doing that. I'm completely transparent. The one last thing I have to say is that there are so many non-Jews who I wish... I can't invite you into the people of Israel because the people of Israel are not whom I myself am at this moment willing to accept as the utopian society. I stopped wearing a hat when it was the hatted people who were going around smashing traffic lights. At this moment, despite being an Orthodox rabbi, I don't advertise it, but I'm saying it here. I am not necessarily keeping the Jewish laws of the kosher laws. I'm not necessarily keeping the precise Sabbath laws as they understand them, as traditional Orthodox Jews understand them. Certainly there are mistakes they have made along the way, but my point is not that. My point is that I feel I'm not living among them. I'm living here in Egypt. I can't be among them as long as they are, in my estimation, so very fallen. I can't be among them. But there's so many non-Jews that I wish, that I know, need to be within the Am Yehovah, the nation of that which is, the nation of God, the nation of truth and of goodness, imperfect as we all are, that need to be within this nation. And unfortunately, what I found in Colombia there was the people coming out of the synagogue on the high holy days were mostly Indians. There were a few Jews. Basically, it was wealthy people. It became a wealthy, successful people community. And they had, for 3 blocks all around, each person had his own sniper protecting him. That's disgusting. When you find that Donald Trump's daughter marries a Jew, and Hillary Clinton's daughter marries a Jew, and Kamala Harris marries a Jew, you know that the Jews are not who they are supposed to be. There are better human beings who are supposed to be joining the Jews. God willing, they soon will be. And I'm here for that. I'm a rabbi. All it takes is 2 more rabbis, and we can convert you into Judaism. There are people who need to be converted, and there are tons of people who have been converted, whom to one degree or another we have to accept, just as we have to accept those who are born into it, no matter how faulty they may be. I will read to you again here from Maimonides, from Rambam. The greatest sage from Moshe. We Jews say, Mi Moshe ad Moshe lo kam k'Moshe. From Moses until Moses, none have arisen like Moses. From Moses, the one who met God on Sinai, to Moses Maimonides, Abu Imran Musa ibn Maimun ibn Abdullah, there have been none who have understood Torah so clearly. I'll read to you again here from Maimonides, as I did there in Morals, and we'll discuss it vis-a-vis the current situation in Israel. Harei ani mekabel al atzmi ahavas Yisrael. I accept upon myself the love of my fellow Jews. Not the love of them for me, my love for them. Let me read you this here. Mitzvah. It is a divine commandment. Al kol adam v'adam. On every human being. Le'ehov, to love. Es kol echad ve'echad mi Yisrael. Every single individual within the peoplehood of Israel. Again, not the country, the peoplehood of Israel. Kegufo, as he cares about his own body. Shene'emar, as the verse states, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you shall love your comrade as yourself. Lefichach, therefore. And you would think you would say lefichach, therefore, make sure he's fed. Make sure, you set up a girl with a guy so they can have a happy marriage. Make sure that they have access to medical care. None of which Jews today are doing. None of which Jews today are doing. But which are all a given. They don't even have to be said by Rambam. He says, Lefichach, tzorech l'saper b'shvachai. You need to speak in his praise. In the praise of other people, so that they have a better reputation. V'lochos ha'mamonai, and to care about his finances, to worry about how he's doing financially. Is he doing okay? Can he make ends meet? Is he worried? Can he have true Shabbos, true freedom and worrylessness from work and responsibility? Ka'asher hu chas ha'mamoin atzmai. Just as each individual worries about his own finances, and wants himself to have a good reputation and to be popular. But someone who gets his honor out of embarrassing someone else, which is the whole fucking internet. Now I speak to all of you, Jews and non-Jews, all of you, every one of you listening. You think the way that we communicate on the internet is acceptable? It's satanic. It is satanic. One who gets glory out of putting other people down, he has no portion, he has no place in the world to come. In the better world, we can't have people like that. Think about that before you leave your next comment. Ahavas hager, the love of the convert. Literally ger, just to explain, when the Bible was written, the Jews had a land, and it meant strangers who come to live with you in your land. The Bible says, remember, you were strangers in Egypt, and how difficult it was. People who come to live among you who are not among you. Today, because technically there is a country of Israel, but the peoplehood of Israel is still not necessarily in that location, it means converts, people who join the Jewish people. Ahavas hager, the love of the convert. Sheba, that came, v'nichnas, and entered, tachas kanfei hashchina, under the wings of the divine presence. Shtei mitzvos aseh. There are two positive commandments that are required upon you regarding them. Achas, one, mipnei shehu b'chal reim, because he is one of your colleagues. He is a Yisrael. He is a Jew. Someone who joins you is a Jew. You're required to care about his happiness, his fame, his marriage, his health, his children's health, all of his things, just as you're required to care about your own. V'achas, and another one, mepnei shehu ger, because he is in that special category of somebody who has joined from the outside. V'haTorah amra, and our book of instructions, our Torah says, V'yohavtem es hager, you should love the convert. Tziva, alahavas hager, k'mo shetziva alahavas atzmo. God commands us to love those people who were born non-Jewish, who become Yisrael, who come to fulfill the utopian life and world that God wants for us, that our Creator wants for us, just as He wants us to love Him Himself. Because one of God's names is the one who loves the ger, the one who loves the stranger, the one who loves the outsider, the one who loves the convert. That's one of God's names. Shene'emar, as it says, V'yahavta es Yehovah Elohecha, you should love Yehovah your God, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the holiness, blessed be He, Atzmo Himself, Ohev Gerim, loves converts, Shene'emar, as it says, V'ohev Ger. One of God's names is the lover of the ger. Kol hasone echad mi Yisrael, anyone who hates anyone from Israel. And again, in our modern world, this is very hard to talk about, because back in those days, we're talking about the Jewish people living in a specific entity, a specific land. They're the only ones you're really interacting with other than the ger. And the ger, you are required to love doubly, the non-Jew who moves in and adopts your and accepts and adopts all your practices and beliefs, your highest ones. You're supposed to love him even more. Jews weren't really dealing. This wasn't the internet era. You understand? So it's a little bit difficult to speak to the internet era and speaking exclusively about Jews. Nonetheless, I'm reading to you what Maimonides wrote here 800 years ago in the country where I am, in Egypt. And his point was that even though any other Jew might be better or worse or just nothing special, nonetheless, Kol hasone echad mi Yisrael, anyone who hates someone from Yisrael, belibo, in his heart, in other words, hatred in your heart, you dislike them in your heart. Over below ta'aseh, he is transgressing one of the commandments of God. Shene'emar, as it says, Lo sisna es achicha b'levecha, do not hate your brother in your heart. We are all considered brothers, whether we like it or not. Ve'ein lokin alav zeh, you can see a bit of the old-fashionedness of this, because today Jews don't carry out corporal punishments, except the state of Israel, which is not a religious state, bear in mind. And therefore does sentence people to jail and things like that. But back in the day, there was a system that was a lot better. Instead of, I can't get sidetracked by describing to you how the biblical system was better than our modern system of punishment, because it would take us too far afield. But basically in those days, they had things like whippings. You get whipped in public and then it's over with. No jail sentence. So he says, when it comes to hating your neighbor in your heart, ve'en lo ken alav zeh, this is not something that you get whipped for. Lefi she'en bo ma'aseh, because there's no action. There has to be an action witnessed by a couple of people. There have to be an investigation before anybody gets a physical punishment. V'lo hizhira Torah ella al sina shabalev, and this is really brilliant. The Torah is only warning us against hatred in your heart. Watch this. Aval hamake es chavero, but someone who hits his friend, v'hamacharfo, or who screams at him in a degrading way, Af al pi she'enu rashai, even though it is not permitted, eino over mishum lo sisna. He is not transgressing that exact commandment of hatred. In other words, the Bible has the belief that for anybody who is part of this covenant, and today it's far more afield. This was written before the Old Testament, what's called by Christians the Old Testament, before that became known to the world. The Old Testament is now known to the world. Regardless of anyone's thoughts on the New Testament, everyone who accepts the New Testament accepts the Old Testament as well. Similarly, Islam. Similarly, all of the values of the people of planet Earth today, except perhaps on North Sentinel Island, have been influenced by the Old Testament. And it says here that you should be essentially assuming the best. You should be essentially assuming that if you have a problem with somebody and you talk to them about it, you should assume that the human deep down is good and will not be happy that you're unhappy. And that therefore if you approach them and deal with them and discuss it with them, then you'll be resolving a problem. And you're making the world a better place for your own soul, for your own life, for their life, and for the world entire. If you're unable to hide your hatred and instead you hit the person or scream at them, well, that's not ideal, but it's not nearly as bad as assuming that, yes, writing them off, they are outside, they are beyond redemption. That's worse. Therefore, Rambam, Maimonides, Abu Imran, Musa, Ibn Maimun, Ibn Abdullah, as he was well known throughout the Islamic world here in Egypt where I'm speaking, he wrote, Kishayechta ish le'ish, when a man sins against a man, and over here he's not even saying Yisrael, he's giving you the general principle of humanity. Kishayechta ish le'ish, when one person hurts another person, lo yistamenu v'yishtok, he should not hate him in his heart and be silent, like it says by the evil people. Quote from the book of Samuel. Velo diber, the background here is that basically David was a king, he had a bunch of wives. Well, one of his children was lusting for his half-sister. It happens. One of his children was lusting for his half-sister. And she said, listen, speak to our father. You know, if it's right, then he will say that it's right, and I'll trust him, and I'll marry you. Even though you really shouldn't marry your half-sister. In any case, whether that was just to try to get a way out, or whether she really believed it is unclear. But that's what she said. What he did instead was that he raped her. He raped his half-sister. And then, instead of loving her, because we can't get into the subject of sex right now, you all know your own sexual proclivities and your own sexual confusions. It's broader in the world. Sexual oddities exist in the world in a wide way. What he was supposed to at least do was actually love her. Which means, you know, maybe he couldn't overcome his lust in the first place, but actually love her, which would give her the option of deciding whether she wants him or not. But he didn't. He sent her away. He was disgusted by her. He had her way with her, and that's all he needed. So her full brother named Avshalom, absolutely despised him. So the Bible says here in the book of Samuel, which Maimonides is bringing down, V'lo diber Avshalom es Amnon ma'uma, and Avshalom did not speak with Amnon, the rapist, a single word. L'meirav ad tov, not bad, not good. Ki sonne Avshalom es Amnon, because Avshalom hated Amnon. He's called a rasha, he's called evil, for hating someone who raped his full sister. Yes, this person is his half-brother. I know our world doesn't have such things really as much. But, wow. The implication here is that he could have actually spoken with his brother Amnon and worked everything out somehow. He's called a rasha, he's called evil for not having done that. Astonishing. So Maimonides tells us, Ella, mitzvah alav, but it is a commandment upon each of you. Lahodio, it's a mitzvah upon anybody who feels they have been wronged, to let the person know who has wronged them. V'lomer lo, and to say to him, Lama asisali kach v'kach, why have you done this or that to me? V'lama chatasali b'davar ploni, why have you hurt me in this way? Shene'emar, as the verse in the 5 books of Moses, because all of our 613 commandments come from the 5 books of Moses. Everything else is what you call Kabbalah. The question of what is accurate Kabbalah, what is inaccurate Kabbalah, is for a different time. We've discussed in these videos. But everything beyond the 5 books of Moses is Kabbalah, meaning that which is received. Only the 5 books of Moses gives us our 613 commandments. And one of them is Hocheach Tochiach Esamisecha. This is so often mistranslated that I have to give you the mistranslation first. The mistranslation is reprove, condemn. That's the mistranslation. Hochiach means to prove it to them, to speak to them in a logical manner, and to explain to them. And then it's repeated, Hocheach Tochiach, you shall certainly reprove. Again, the word is not reprove, just as it's not in the first chapter of Isaiah, Lechuna v'nivakha, where God says, come, let us converse. That's what it is. Let us converse in honesty, in open-heartedness and honesty, with the hope that we can fix the wrong feelings that we feel to each other so that we will be in love again. The Torah commands, Hocheach tochiach esamisecha. Explain it and explain it again. Try to be understood. Try to understand the other person. Ve'im chazar, and if the other person returns and realizes what he had done wrong, or if there was a miscommunication, etc., uvikesh menu limchol, and he asks, please forgive me, tzarach limchol, you're required to forgive. V'lo yehei hamochel achzori, and the person who has now in their right to forgive because it's been clarified that someone said something wrong to you, don't be cruel. Shnei Amar, as it says about Abraham, when someone stole his wife and tried to sleep with his wife, didn't succeed but tried, Vayispalel Avraham el Elohim, and Abraham prayed to God on their behalf. I published a Substack article called I to my beloved as my beloved is to me, which is the theme of this month of Elul. Today is the first day of Elul after the celebration. The very, very first day is a celebration of Elul. The second day is where we get down to work. So this is the first day of that. And in Elul, it's about reconciling all of us with each other and all of us with God. And what I wrote in that article, which, please ask me to share that article in the comments. I'm not going to do it otherwise. It's just too much to ask of me to do without knowing that people actually care. So please ask me if you want to see that article regarding Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, regarding what we need to do here in Elul in this month. You don't understand that our world could enter a beatific state within days? Within days! Within days! Everything that preceded in your life to this point will be like, wow, that was really dumb. Things are so much better right now. It just takes days. That's it. What I wrote there is that it is not a commandment for us to go out and say, I'm sorry. I would like to do that at this point. So let me say, during this month of Elul, when it's customary to do so, before the High Holy Days, I am confident that I have done more good for humanity 100-fold than I have done wrong. However, at the same time, I am confident that being just a human being, there are people whom I have done wrong. Whether I actually did more good for those people than I did wrong for them is beyond the point. I don't expect them to notice that. We notice when wrong is done to us much more strongly than we notice when good is done to us, even by the same person. So first of all, anyone who has an issue with me, please contact me privately. I'll put it up here. My WhatsApp number is 1-646-623-5924. I don't want to have bad feelings with anybody. 1-646-623-5924. My email, moshe.j.rudner@gmail.com, moshejrudner@gmail.com. If you hold a grudge against me, I can't force you to not be a Rasha. If you want to be evil and continue to hold on to that grudge, that's your human prerogative. But if you would like us to be able to reconcile and be friends, please contact me. But that's so easy to do, what I just did. What's harder is to make myself vulnerable. I had a mystical experience a week ago. The end result of which, that was a certain individual, an individual who knows fully good and well that I am more likely to bring Israel to a place of security, safety, love, holiness, happiness, all of the good things. He knows this more than any other person because he was involved, he saw it happen. He was my student. He was my friend. And this mystical experience told me that I should actually, instead of continually telling him, you're doing it wrong, please speak to me, you're doing it wrong, because he has a lot of influence in the world these days, that I should actually reach out to him like a small, embarrassing baby and say, hey, Elliot, we were friends, you were my student, I taught you everything you knew, you know that I'm the answer to all of the Israel thing today, if you just put me in the conversation. But I'm supposed to make a personal tiny complaint against you. And that is that as you've done better and better in life, as you've gotten, your monetary, you've gotten fame, you've gotten fortune, you're able to give jobs, you have, how is it that you were able to leave me behind, single and broke my whole life? Now, the truth is, I don't feel that. I come from 4 Holocaust survivors. I don't expect much from humanity. That's why I have nothing against non-Jews at all. At all. I have been extremely, extremely impressed. I was raised to believe that all non-Jews want to kill all the Jews. And here I'm living in Egypt, officially the most anti-Semitic country. But in reality, people know I'm Jewish, know I'm a rabbi, and I have many friends, and everything here is wonderful. So I don't have expectations of people. I have some expectations of Judaism writ large, the Jewish world writ large. But of Elliot himself, he's probably a nice guy, he probably does a lot of good. I've saved people's lives. I don't think I've ever saved his life. What am I expecting from the guy already? The truth is, he knows that I myself have taken care of thousands of people who had no one else to take care of them. He knows that. But this isn't about him. It's just that I had to make that message to him, and I did. 13-minute message. He's invited to share it and any and everything else I communicated with him. At this point, I have to state that as far as I'm concerned, he is a Rasha. Christians, I know you think that the New Testament, Jesus says, first of all, I believe I know the New Testament and understand it better than you do. But second of all, I don't care. I don't think Jesus was a God anyway. So it's not relevant to me what he happened to have said. I hold him in very, very high esteem, but we view these things very differently. He is a Rasha. He has been given every opportunity. I have tried to give him every opportunity. He appears as a tzaddik, but I think that's it. It's tragic. He could have done so much good. He could have been so good. Enough about him. This isn't about him. I would prefer not to even mention him. But I had to, as an introduction to saying that I have to bring this up with the Jewish world in total. There's no other individual that I could bring this up with. Who? Adam Jacobs, who once thought that I would definitely be the Messiah, but that I just needed some fixing, who I've been begging to help me do the fixing so I can do my part. Chaim Berg, who appears to have lost complete understanding of who I am. A good friend. I love Chaim. Yitzchak Berkowitz, the person who taught Smicha, who comes across as a very humble man, but as you can tell by the positions that he's received, maybe he enjoys a little bit of honor, but he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's an all-around one of the best human beings there is in the world. But vis-a-vis me, he was not an ish emes, and he tried to destroy my emes. Emes means truth. He's played the role of the person who knows truth and can speak truth, and yet when I would speak truth, he would cut it down. There was too much of a risk to everything he believes in, the whole life he set up for himself. Who is there to address? I haven't spoken to Yitzchak in many, many years. Who is there to address as individuals? Rav Chaim Pinchas Steinberg is not alive. He's the one who, when I saved Gilad Adashev, who everybody else, the Chief Rabbi of Israel, Rav Elyashiv, everybody else was willing to let continue to be tortured and murdered on Hitler's birthday. I saved his life. Rav Chaim Pinchas Steinberg said, "Amakana your olam haba." He said, "I don't have a portion in the world to come as high as yours." He's not alive. I can't speak to him. Who am I to address? The Gedolim? Are there Gedolim? Are there Jewish leaders? Let's admit it. These days, the rich Jews are the Jewish leaders. And those that are the religious ones, they're kowtowing to them. My complaint is simple. I have publicly taken care of Jews who were in need when you neglected them. Numerous ones, from the people at the French hospice daily, thousands of hours, to a drunk person on the street who I took into my actual home, over and over, to saving Gilad Adashev, over and over and over and over. And how many of you knew it? How many of you saw it? How many of you did I convince to come along with me to the French hospice? And you should be okay with a world where I remain broke and single my entire life? I have a complaint with you. Fortunately, again, there's no one specifically to address it to. Elliot doesn't deserve the complaint. He didn't do any worse than anybody else, vis-a-vis me personally. What, he didn't give me a job? All right, lots of people didn't give me jobs. People whose lives I've saved haven't given me a job. Whatever. Adam, who once knew who I was, who saw who I was, many years have passed. Chaim, who has lost the remembrance of anything, I don't know. Yitzchak Berkowitz, I haven't spoken to him in 25 years. I don't know who he is today. I have no complaints against individuals. I don't. But Jewish society has failed. I can speak when I say, with Yeshaya, that Yedechem malu dam, atem meratzchem, you are murderers, your hands are full of blood. I can say that when I look around at other, forget even the outside world, because I agree, sure, you should perfect your Jewish world first before perfecting the outside world, absolutely. But even in your Jewish world, all the suffering there is, I can speak to it because I know that your excuses regarding all those people are invalid because they're invalid regarding me. I know my own life, and they're invalid regarding me. Why am I single? Why am I broke? Why have I broke my whole life? Why have I raised more money to help other people than I've ever had in my own life? They're invalid regarding me. And therefore I have no reason to give a shit about any excuse about, well, they're just not helpable, so they're homeless, or they're unhappy, or they end up in jail, or whatever else. Bullshit. Nevertheless, I am commanded to love the Jews. And there are certain commandments in the Torah to hate certain peoples. I give you my rabbinic decision that as far as I can tell right now, there are neither any demographics nor any individuals that I am certain fit into that category of people whom we are supposed to hate. I will tell you if I think otherwise. But as of now, I don't think there's any individuals that I can think of, Jew or non-Jew, that must fit into that category of people to hate. So let me speak to Jews. I guess this is the conclusion. What I want to do for you is for your good. It's true, I didn't necessarily always care. You don't know me at all. You don't know me. I was in Israel. I moved to Israel as a 17-year-old yeshiva boy a few days before Nachshon Waxman was kidnapped. I tried to do everything I could. You know what regular Jews do, right? Regular Jews, what they do is they, at the end of davening, I'm speaking now to Orthodox Jews, and I'm sorry for everyone else who doesn't understand the specific jargon. At the end of davening, right? That's what it is. You close your eyes, maybe you crunch your eyes a little bit, and you say the words, good to go! Good to go! You've done your part for Nachshon Waxman! The holiest among you might take upon yourself a decision to do some extra good deed. Me, at 17, I took it upon myself as my responsibility to save his life. How could I? If you love your fellow Jew as yourself, here is a person captured by Hamas. Hamas didn't exist. It was pre-Hamas, same thing. And he's going to be killed. He's certainly being tortured. He's suffering. I'm going to sleep on a mattress? I got rid of my mattress. I slept on a board. Not that that's necessarily going to help. I mean, I don't know how the divine reckoning works, but whether that helps with the divine reckoning or whether it simply helps with me to have the necessary empathy, or just simply if I have the empathy for him. I never met him before, never heard of him before, Nachshon Waxman. Then of course, I'm sleeping on a mattress? I'm eating regular happy meals? I'm having friendly conversations? Impossible. And over the course of the next 1 year, I completely conquered every personal human drive, every personal thing that says that I am more important than someone else. Everything. Things you wouldn't believe. I have spoken to a great many great people, and they have all admitted to me that they have jerked off. Jerking off is a personal pleasure, isn't it? If you don't have sex, Andy. I was able to conquer that. I had a very high libido. I was able to conquer that on behalf of Anonymai, some Jewish children who had been burned. The story is very, very personal, of course. Suffice it to say, I did it. I conquered myself completely. I was living for God, which as I understood it meant living for the happiness of, and the truth, the true happiness, the actual, ha'emes v'hashalom, the truth and the good for all of his people. Starting with the Jews, eventually all people and all of creation. That's what I was for years. And I have a complaint with you Aish people. You saw it. Today, only the second or third, depending on how you count, person from Aish actually contributed to what I'm doing. To me. Forget about what I'm doing. You've all known that because of some scam Jewish dentist taking advantage of other Jews, I've had 2 teeth pulled out that didn't have to be pulled out, and that I need teeth. For me personally, I'm living in a tiny little place. Look at the place I'm living. That's it. I'm not complaining about any of that at all, other than the teeth perhaps. But the place doesn't matter to me at all. I have a mission here. I don't care where I'm physically located. But only the third person from Aish, the people who knew best, stood forth. But Harei ani makabel al atzmi, ahavas Yisrael. So I need you Jews to know. Some people have thought that I'm like Shalom Achshav, that I'm saying, like, give the Arabs everything and then they'll be nice. Are you kidding? If you're historically ignorant, then I'm sorry, it's a longer conversation. If you're not historically ignorant, let me tell you that my number one role model in this respect, everything to do with Zionism, is Menachem Begin. Beyond that, we have Rabbi Schneerson, we have Zev Jabotinsky, but Menachem Begin in his youth, he was, of course, had to go through a lot of suffering at the hands of his fellow Jews for many, many years before he became prime minister at an old age and couldn't quite do as much. And even yet, as an old age, look how much he did. He stopped the wars. Before Menachem Begin, Egypt was the one who arranged all the wars against Israel. Those ended with Menachem Begin. What I'm trying to do by understanding the point of view of the people of Gaza, which is not hard to understand, I have videos here that have discussed it. What I'm trying to do, I promise you, is in your good. And while at the same time, at this moment anyway, I still hold it against you, I don't trust you. I don't trust you Jews that if I do this good for you, you will take care of me. Because you've hurt me a lot. I'm being honest in saying that. Today, I received $100 from my friend Tzadok, a fellow in Eshet Torah. And maybe Jews aren't that bad. Maybe you're actually reachable. Maybe if I speak my mind, you actually can understand. But regardless of whether you do or don't, I swear to you that I'm not selling you out. I swear to you that your happiness is paramount, that your safety and security is paramount. And I swear to you that there are millions of people, at least 500,000 of which are Jewish people, who could within 3 days put my voice prominent in the conversation, have me booked. There are PR agents. The world works a certain way. It doesn't work via the YouTube algorithm. It works via SEO people who get paid $300,000, via PR people, via who knows what, via booking people, all kinds of things that I'm not gifted at. There are millions and millions of people and at least 500,000 Jews who can spend $1 million within 3 days that my voice should be within the conversation, that I will be within the conversation. I'm not God, I can't guarantee anything. But I'm trying my best and I believe that I am, and I check myself every minute. I believe that I am in accordance with God's wishes and with your wishes, with the wishes of all the world. So, at the very least, please join me on Substack. It costs $36, but at least it shows that you've joined. And if you can't afford $36, I speak now to the whole world. I speak now especially to Egyptians, fellow Egyptians. I'm willing to make it 30 cents. It isn't that which matters. What matters is your membership, that you're with me on the barricades, that you're helping, that you're part of this struggle, that you're part of this love for a better world that we can have within our lifetimes now. And if you can really, if God bless you, that you really have the ability to put me in the public conversation within 3 days, do so. May you be blessed. I love you all. Jews and non-Jews, everybody, I love you all.